Here's a question for us today. Why do we post on social media? Why do you post on social media? So many of us do. Well, that is the question we want to ask today on this edition of Poetry, Passion, and Pleasure podcast with your host, Dale Byron. This is where we use poetry in traditional and non-traditional ways to help us lead more full lives. So I want to delve right into this, but what I wanted to say, just by way of context, I just finished listening to an amazing conversation between Bill McKibben, the ecologist, and also Nate Hagens, the ecological economist, and many other things. They both are. But it was an amazing, very inspiring conversation, but also incredibly daunting, incredibly sobering, to say the least. And so, in that spirit, I want to try to add a little piece or a little illumination, if possible, to this whole idea. Because the note I made for myself is that there is an incredible amount of vitriol and shrillness that is evident in our social media, in that landscape. Have you noticed? It would be hard not to notice. There are even perverse sort of structural algorithms that are famously do what they can to reinforce and foment the anger and division and fear as a way to capture our human attention and to ultimately convert that into economic gain. So all of that's going on. But I also know, that there is a deep human intention, which is also evident on social media, for us to help and serve one another. And so I want to kind of delve into that a little bit, or I've been wanting to do that for some time. And here's a little piece that uh, begins to speak to this question. And it is called Why We Post on Social Media. Why We Post on Social Media. And the byline to the poem is a poem of description and aspiration, a poem of description and aspiration. So the poem goes like this. Of course, of course, there are strategic calculations. Of course, there are strategic calculations of work, employment, the survival thing, the importance of which I do not dismiss or diminish in our modern times. But there are other, maybe even deeper, more emergent reasons for our so-called social media postings. A reaching out to kindred spirits, saying something that might lift someone sometime, anytime, to persuade with a quote, a few lines of a story, a poem, an idea, to express thanks and gratitude with a simple congratulations. And yes, at times to simply cry out in frustration, anger, and pain as we constantly prove ourselves human, dodging the cold, watchful eye of the attention and profit obsessed algorithms. We write and post to see ourselves. We write and post to see ourselves, to set the darkness echoing, to let fly our creative and irreducible rascality. And it is our stumbles, doubts, and imperfections that make us even more, more human, as does honoring but not indulging our tendency to judge and strike out when lonely or afraid? In other words, to be sure, right, and certain. In other words, to be sure, right, and certain can make us hard and trampled like a yard. Rather accepting our vulnerabilities, we ask this question. We ask this question: is there anyone there? Is there anyone there? Or am I alone in this hurtful feeling? Seeking to hear and be heard, seeking to hear and be heard. We keep reaching out. We keep reaching out, doing our best to engage the plain, down to earth poetics of a more fully lived life. Neither simplistic or obscure, neither simplistic or obscure, but as complex and unfathomable as a Bach fugue, the idea of winter, or the simple seeking sound of a hermit thrush whose haunting calls are heard in every season. Or yes, or yes, even these few tin can sounds tapping out on an old stove's pipe, these humbled offered words of ours, these humbled offered words of ours, each given, cast out in the electron world to help, heal, inspire, illuminate. Or yes, even these few tin can sounds tapped out on an old stove's pipe, these humble offered words of ours, each given, cast out into the electron world to help, heal, inspire, illuminate. Of course, we face huge existential challenges in our political, social, and ecological domains. The interview I was just referencing earlier with Bill McKibben and Nate Hagans talked about all of these and how they come together in an incredibly challenging um, set of predicaments. Yeah, which we can say are political, social, and ecological, but in another sense, we we split those up that way only because our language does that. They're all connected. Have we noticed? Have we noticed? My note says these challenges for me are the very reason to go upstream where we can try and wrestle with something like cause, way upstream where we can try to wrestle with something like cause is what I was thinking. Because it's become fashionable to focus upon, call out, and describe the most unskillful portions of the human nature. What if our superpower, what if our superpower is still cooperation and a willingness to step outside of ourselves and be helpful? This is not to deny the the difficult parts, the way we strike out in fear, as the poem says, the way we strike out when we feel cornered and in danger, the way that we humans can be mean-spirited um, and small-minded. All that. I don't deny any of that. And I don't think in the conversation again with Bill McKibben and Nate Hagans, they were sort of modeling this idea of accepting the most difficult parts of our reality, and yet, still deciding to highlight the places where we can move forward. No one knows what the results are going to be. Only the decision we can make to keep one foot in front of another. And in this, what I would consider to be a longer prose poem for me, which I wrote, why we post on social media. This has been something that's been very interesting to me because I do sense and I do feel that that these last lines of this small, humble poem that I've written are true. I say, or yes, even these few tin can sounds. Now, that's a reference to a poem that I can't remember the name of right now, but they talked about that our best literature is like, you know, I can't remember, a gorilla beating on a tin with a tin can on a pipe or something like that. But that's a reference to that when I say, or yes, even these few tin can sounds tapped out on an old stove's pipe, these humble offered words of ours, each given, each given, cast out in the electron world, in this electron world, to help, heal, inspire, illuminate. I think that that if we can focus on that piece as well, and in a very practical sense, let me just add this. I've found that in the social media landscape, that there are ways, once we do find kindred spirits, that if we can trade notes and sometimes even trade actual phone calls or video calls with people that we have connected with, that we can make the environment of social media into more an environment that is a real community. Anyway, this is my own experiment. This is my own hope. So, why we post on social media? Yes, indeed, many reasons, but we also do it, I think, to help, to heal, to inspire, and to illuminate. Okay, well, that's a wrap. Thank you much. Thank you so much, I should say, for your listening ear. And I really, really appreciate you being here on this journey with me and with us, with those of us who are using and love to use poetry to live just a little bit more full and interesting lives. Okay, so thanks again. And until next time and next poem, take good care of yourself. And as I always say, if you can, take care of someone else too.